Ni hao. So, as soon as you put accounting on a slide, people normally fall asleep. So I thought I'd put a nice picture to go with it of our planet so that we wouldn't all fall asleep. NASA calls this no place like home, and I would agree with NASA. I think this is our only home at the moment, to protect it. So why am I talking about accounting and sustainable plastics? Well, 175 nations on Friday signed an agreement to ratify the Paris COP21 outcomes, and that's great in terms of mitigating climate change, but we have many other issues. And sometimes when we seek to address one environmental issue, we create another environmental issue. So let me give you an example. Lightweighting plastic bottles is a great idea for climate change because it reduces the weight of transported goods and therefore helps us address climate change actually. But perhaps lightweighting plastic goods is a bad idea for our oceans because every year we throw so much waste into our oceans that we're creating around $13 billion of damage to our marine ecosystems. And that's damage not just to fish. Fish don't have bank accounts, that's damage to us. So actually what we're doing is we're really damaging our own economies whilst seeking to develop them economically. In China alone, air pollution costs around 5% of GDP. So imagine if I said actually the cost of addressing air pollution could be as low as 1% of GDP. That would mean China could grow 4% faster, and growth is a big topic. So actually, what we really need to do is balance traditional financial metrics with new, sustainable financial metrics. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Specifically with respect to plastic. So 3 years ago, we thought of a great idea. We thought actually that it wouldn't be a great idea if we could measure the societal benefit of all the interventions that we hear about in this room. What would the benefit be of making bottles out of plant-based materials? What would the benefit be of making sure that plastic is biodegradable or recyclable at the end of use? What would these benefits be? And can we communicate these benefits actually in economic terms? Because if we can, policymakers, CEOs, and many other people will actually listen. And at the moment, and I'll mention this later, but at the moment, the person who's listening hardest is the chief economist at the People's Bank of China, because it's his job to reform China's banking system and financial system, and he has formed the Green Finance Committee. And so really, this is an economic issue, and therefore, to grapple an economic issue, we need to understand the economics of sustainable plastics and the benefit of sustainable plastics. So what did we do? Well, we're launching this report later today, and it will be available on our website, or come and speak to me, or email me. My email address will be on this presentation. And essentially what we did was we looked at 2 case studies, and we launched a new method to measure environmental benefit. So this new method is a method to put a dollar value on sustainable interventions. And in order to do that, to bring it to life, we worked with both Dell and Algix, and we put together 2 case studies, and they're written up in this report here. So what do I mean by putting a dollar value on environmental benefit? Well, really what we're doing here is we are taking a sort of 3-step approach to measuring and valuing environmental benefits. We first have to look at, what the actual resource use is of business as usual. So what is our kind of standard business practice? What kind of damage has been created? And actually we know that because that $13 billion that I mentioned earlier was a number that we calculated in collaboration with Doug and his organization, and also with the UN Environment Programme. Then we have to consider to what extent changes against business as usual are positive changes. And so really what we do there is we untangle that conundrum between a benefit to climate change and a disbenefit to waste. So let's look at a range of different environmental factors when we're creating new goods and services, and let's actually look at the benefit created by these different parameters. And then what we can do is measure how does this affect our well-being. And so, really what we do is we set the scope and boundaries of the system. This is kind of traditional life cycle analysis, as it's known. And what we're doing there is we're really looking at the entire life cycle. We're looking at, cradle to grave, or hopefully cradle to recycle. And we're setting the boundary, if you like, of a traditional system versus this new system. We then quantify the life cycle impacts at each stage in 6 different main categories. And so we look at the different physical differences. How many tons of CO2 have we saved with this new process or this new product? How much water has been saved? How much waste has been saved? Have we avoided converting land to unsustainable use? And then what we do is we value the benefits. So we actually value each of those benefits. What is the benefit of avoiding climate change? What is the benefit in China of avoiding air pollution? We can actually measure these benefits in economic terms. So the benefit of avoiding air pollution in China, very simple example, is a reduction in healthcare costs, a reduction in actually people dying younger than they should die, and therefore an increase in the productive capacity of the economy, a reduction, an improvement in soil quality, because air pollution damages soil quality, and therefore an improvement in crop yield. So all of these benefits can actually be measured in economic terms. Then, communicate the benefits in business terms to the CEO, to the customer, to the shareholder, to the bank, to the regulator. And so this is really what we did. We started with Dell, and we looked at Dell's closed loop system that we just heard about, Russell, and we looked at the environmental benefit of closing the loop of that system. And so closing the loop, we found, had 44% greater environmental benefit per kilogram of plastic, i.e. 44% better than business as usual. And the reduced environmental impacts, as you can see on the slide there, are quite varied. They do range from climate change to smog, air pollution, water pollution, and reduction in waste, obviously. So what we did was we then said, okay, that's fantastic. What would happen if that was scaled across the entire industry? So what would happen if everybody adopted that? What would happen if we actually appealed to policymakers and said, this is an important intervention, incentivizing? Well, what would happen is we would go from, let's say, $1 million a year from the current system that we've that Dell use. That's $1 million of benefit to society, by the way, $1 million benefit to Dell. So that's Dell's benefit to society by avoiding business as usual practice. If you then scale that to Dell, that's a bigger number. That's $50 million per year. So that's $50 million of benefit, shared value, like benefit that Dell would be providing to society by scaling that across all of its computers. And actually, if you scale that across the entire industry, it would be a much, much bigger circle. So it would be $700 million per year. So that one intervention, huge benefit. Now, $700 million is actually quite a lot of money. And I think that shareholders would be very happy if that benefit was flowing around the economy. In fact, pension funds are incredibly concerned about the fact that because they invest so widely in the economy, that a benefit created by one company that is actually creating externalities, creating costs for everyone else, is obviously damaging the rest of the economy and all the other investments they make. And so this is a good thing. We next looked at algae, so making bio-based plastic, and in a similar way, we analysed the benefit associated with algae plastics, and if you scale that, what benefit would that achieve? And we looked in 3 different sectors, so you perhaps can't read this hopefully, but you can get the presentation afterwards. We looked at footwear manufacturing, soft drink and ice manufacturing, and carpet and rug mills. These are industrial classifications, not the way I would call these sectors necessarily. So let's imagine that you are a big footwear brand. You decide to switch all of your plastics as an input into your sneakers. You change it to bio-based plastics. What benefit would that have? Well, quite simply, there would be an environmental saving of 5%. You'd actually reduce, in absolute terms, the CO2 emissions associated with your supply chain in total, across the entire supply chain. So that's a huge impact. If you think about it, a lot of these major companies are really thinking about ways of reducing CO2 emissions in absolute terms whilst growing the business. This is a way of doing it. Similarly, for software and ice manufacturing, there are benefits as well for carpet and rug plants. So, overall, what did we find? Well, we actually found the economic benefit from 3 interventions alone, and there are plenty of others we could have looked at. This is a limited scope exercise. Just closing the loop for Dell, using bioplastic in footwear, and using bioplastic in the soft drink industry, and if you scale that up, it would have a $3.5 billion benefit from that scaling exercise. So that's actually a huge benefit to society and to our local economies. And against the backdrop of a $13 billion problem in our oceans, that would go a long way. Just those 2 things would go a long way to solving that. I wanted to end on China, seeing as we are in China. And on Saturday, another day, another report. We launched a report in Beijing, actually on Monday, sorry, it's been a long week. We launched a report in Beijing with the support of the People's Bank of China and the Green Finance Committee and ICBC. And in this report, we quantified the natural capital impact of China. So what is the current cost associated with production in China? And these are big numbers. You can read the report, it's trillions of renminbi. And interestingly, this kind of work is being picked up by the Green Finance Committee. We're finding that Chinese banks are increasingly accounting for natural capital. And I mention this because I think that it's really important for those who are designing interventions in this room to see that there's a definite concrete connection starting to form between how the finance system is incentivizing behavior in the economy. And this is coming from the top down in China. So Chinese banks will increasingly support interventions that are made in the Chinese economy, innovations, with green finance. We're actually already seeing this. There was a green state-owned enterprise bond issued just yesterday by a car manufacturer in China. I think it was 2.5 billion RMB. So you have a green bond, essentially, whose proceeds are dedicated to environmental benefits. And so, for people in this room thinking about how to scale plastic interventions in China, use green bonds as a vehicle. Why not? There's huge demand from the financial system right now. There's a top-down mandate. And really importantly, China is hosting the G20 summit this year in September. And so that's a massive opportunity because China has put together a green finance study group with the United Kingdom, and they will be announcing their results in September. And wouldn't it be great if there were green bonds that were issued around the same time that addressed plastic problems and created sustainable plastic innovations? Thank you.
Just to blow our own horn with plasticity, this is a great example, and I've seen this many times, of a collaboration, a multi-tier collaboration. Both Algix and Dell have spoken to plasticity before, as has Richard, and we put this project together. I think it's one of the most groundbreaking new ways to look at the net benefit of a decision that you're trying to make and sell to your boss of why you're going to add 5 cents to the package and why it's good for that. Usually today, the accounting system says, or the manager says, oh, 5 cents, I can't afford that, so we're not going to do it. And that environmental change doesn't happen for another 5 years because you don't get into the system. Now what we have is a way to show there's benefits to the shareholder, to the CEO, and to other stakeholders who are giving a bigger piece of the pie and a bigger chance for someone out there to say, oh my gosh, that is a great decision. I want to make that extra investment on that package and get 40% PCR in commodity product. And I think that is where this kind of thing is great. And as we go into China with green bonds, as Richard said, this is maybe pretty interesting opportunity for some of you in the audience. Any question? Quick question? Only Mike? Sorry.
It's a similar question to what I asked Del. So you use the terminology closed loop recycling in your analysis. you strictly mean your analysis was done on closed loop? Would it be different if you use post-consumer in your mind with your analysis that turned out differently, and if so, why?
I mean, we use exactly what Dell does, so the answer is pretty similar for this case study for Dell. But really, the point is that we analyze everything against a benchmark. So there are different innovations and solutions out there in the marketplace, and they have different scales of benefits. But actually, one thing to consider with this is they have different opportunities to scale as well. So you have to take into account the practical nature of scaling opportunities as well as the absolute benefit level. There may be some subtle differences in terms of post-capital recycling versus closed loop. We actually specifically looked at the Dell scenario in the whole.
Thank you. And Richard, also, that was $3.5 billion gain per year, is that right?
Yes, per annum, yeah.
So that's a pretty good number if we scale that. So thank you very much, Richard.